The humans broke our most sacred law on a Tuesday. Not that they knew it was Tuesday, or that they cared about our laws, or that they even understood the concept of time beyond their own primitive measurements. But there I was, Senior Evaluator Krix-9, watching through my optical sensors as Captain Maya Torres did something that should have been impossible. She was lifting a 3-ton shipping container with her bare hands while humming. Now, let me be clear about something. In my 400 cycles of Galactic service, evaluating species for potential membership in the Cosmic Assembly, I had seen strong beings. The Gorvani could punch through starship hulls. The Thek-Mor wrestled with gravity itself for entertainment. But humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, barely worth considering for anything beyond manual labor positions. The data files said so. Every scan, every measurement, every biological assessment screamed the same thing: average muscle density, standard bone composition, unremarkable physical capabilities. We had classified them as Category 7, minimal threat, suitable for light industrial work only. So why was Maya Torres currently bench pressing what amounted to a small building? Krix-9 to command base. I transmitted, my voice modulator crackling with disbelief. We may have a problem. The response came through immediately, sharp and dismissive. Define problem, evaluator. The humans appear to be stronger than anticipated. A pause. Then, what I can only describe as electronic laughter. Stronger. Krix-9, are you experiencing system malfunctions? The biological scans were thorough. Humans possess standard mammalian muscle structure, with no notable enhancements. I watched Maya Torres set down the container, wipe her forehead with a small cloth, and then pick up another container. This one was bigger. Command: I am observing a human female lifting approximately 6,000 pounds of cargo, without mechanical assistance, while maintaining casual conversation with her colleagues. Another pause. Longer this time. That is impossible. Yes, Commander. That was my assessment as well. Yet here we are. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about evaluation protocols, threat assessment, and the fundamental nature of impossibility itself. Maya Torres noticed me watching. She set down the container, which landed with a thunderous crash that shook the entire loading dock, and walked over to my concealed observation post. Her approach was casual, almost friendly, like she was strolling through a garden rather than crossing an industrial warehouse floor. You know, she said, speaking directly to my hidden position. Most folks introduce themselves before they start staring. My optical sensors nearly short-circuited. Humans were not supposed to possess advanced detection capabilities. Their sensory apparatus was documented as average at best. Yet somehow, this female had located my perfectly camouflaged surveillance unit from across a facility the size of several sports stadiums. I remained silent, hoping she would lose interest and return to her impossible feats of strength. She did not lose interest. Instead, Maya Torres did something that violated approximately 17 different galactic protocols and made my threat assessment algorithms scream warning messages across every display panel in my mobile unit. She smiled, not the predatory grimace of an apex hunter, or the calculating expression of a tactical mind recognizing an opponent. This was something far more dangerous. This was genuine friendliness directed at a being she knew was watching her from hiding. Come on out, she called, her voice carrying that peculiar human quality that somehow managed to be both invitation and command simultaneously. I promise I won't bite. Unless you are into that sort of thing, in which case we should probably discuss boundaries first. The casual mention of physical violence delivered with humor made my neural processors stutter. Humans were documented as having complex social structures, but this level of confident interaction with unknown entities fell completely outside our behavioral model. I made a decision that, in retrospect, probably saved my life and definitely destroyed my career. I revealed myself. My mobile unit rose from its concealment behind a stack of shipping crates, optical sensors adjusting to the warehouse's harsh lighting. Maya Torres watched this process with apparent fascination, her head tilting at an angle that suggested curiosity rather than alarm. "Well, hello there," she said, as if giant mechanical spiders emerging from hiding were a perfectly normal part of her daily routine. "That is some seriously impressive hardware. What do you call yourself?" "I am Senior Evaluator Krix-9 of the Galactic Assessment Division," I replied, my voice modulator automatically adjusting to human auditory ranges. "I am conducting standard species evaluation procedures." Species evaluation. Maya Torres laughed, a sound that my audio processors registered as containing multiple harmonic frequencies that somehow conveyed amusement, surprise, and genuine interest all at once. "You mean like rating us? Giving us stars on Space Yelp?" I had no reference point for understanding Space Yelp, but her tone suggested it was some form of comparative rating system. "In a manner of speaking, yes. We assess species for potential integration into galactic civilization." "Ah," Maya Torres nodded sagely. "And how are we doing so far?" This was where things became complicated. The truthful answer was that humans were failing spectacularly on every metric we used to evaluate civilized species. Their planet was a disaster of competing nations, resource conflicts, and environmental damage. Their technology was barely advanced enough for local system travel. Their social structures were chaotic, violent, and completely unpredictable. But Maya Torres had just lifted 6,000 pounds like it was a paperweight. "Your species presents certain anomalies," I said carefully. "Anomalies." She repeated the word like she was tasting it. "That's a polite way of saying we are weird, isn't it? Humans consistently demonstrate capabilities that exceed their documented physical parameters." "Oh, you mean the strength thing?" Maya Torres waved dismissively at the containers she had been moving. "That's not really strength, honey. That's just stubbornness." My processors struggled to pass this statement. "Please elaborate." Maya Torres walked over to a nearby bench and sat down, patting the space beside her in what appeared to be an invitation for me to join her. Since my mobile unit was not designed for sitting, I positioned myself at what my social interaction protocols suggested was an appropriate conversational distance. "See, the thing about humans," she began, "is that we don't really accept limits the way other folks do. When someone tells us something is impossible, our first instinct is to figure out how to do it anyway. Not because we are particularly smart or strong or fast, but because being told we can't do something irritates us on a fundamental level. The containers you were lifting weigh several tons." "Sure they do. And conventional wisdom says I shouldn't be able to lift them. But conventional wisdom also said humans couldn't fly, couldn't go to space, couldn't survive in environments that should kill us, and couldn't build civilizations that span entire continents." She shrugged. "Conventional wisdom has a pretty poor track record when it comes to predicting what humans will do next." I processed this information while simultaneously running diagnostics on my evaluation protocols. None of my training had prepared me for subjects who approached physical limitations as suggestions rather than absolute boundaries. "Your biological scans indicate standard muscle density and bone composition," I pointed out. "Right. Which means I shouldn't be able to lift those containers, but I needed to move them, and there wasn't any other equipment available, so I figured out how to do it anyway." Maya Torres leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. "That's the thing you galactic types keep missing about us. You measure our muscles, count our bones, analyze our brain chemistry, and think you understand what we are capable of. But you are measuring the hardware and ignoring the software. Software, the programming, the way we think, the stuff that makes us who we are." She tapped her temple. "You want to know why humans keep surprising everyone? It's because we are running on our operating system that treats impossible as a starting point, rather than a stopping point." Alarm chimed in my mobile unit. Priority transmission from command base. I opened the channel while maintaining conversation protocols with Maya Torres. Krix-9, report status immediately. Currently engaged in direct dialogue with Subject Prime Commander, you revealed yourself to the evaluation target? That is a severe protocol violation. Maya Torres was watching me with obvious amusement. "Let me guess," she said. Your boss is not happy about you talking to the test subject. The fact that she could infer the content of a communication channel she could not possibly access sent fresh waves of alarm through my threat assessment systems. How did you? Lucky guess. Her grin suggested it was anything but luck. Look, Krix. Can I call you Krix? Your evaluation protocols are probably based on studying species that follow predictable patterns. You measure their capabilities, document their behaviors, and make projections about their potential contributions to galactic society. Am I close? Uncomfortably close. Those methods have proven effective for over 2,000 species evaluations. Right. But here's the thing about humans that your bosses probably haven't figured out yet. Maya Torres stood up and walked back to the containers she had been moving. We don't follow patterns. We break them. She placed her hands on the largest container, the one that had to weigh at least 8,000 pounds. Maya Torres, do not, I began. She lifted it over her head. Not with visible strain, not with the grunting and sweating that should accompany such an impossible feat. She lifted 8,000 pounds of shipping container like it was an empty cardboard box, held it there for several seconds while maintaining eye contact with my optical sensors, then set it down with the gentle precision of someone placing a delicate ornament on a shelf. The question you should be asking, she said, brushing dust off her hands, is not how strong we are. The question you should be asking is, what happens when a species that refuses to accept limitations gets access to galactic technology? My threat assessment algorithms were now generating warnings in 17 different languages. Krix-9. The transmission from command base was sharp with urgency. Your readings are indicating massive energy spikes. What is your status? I stared at Maya Torres, who was now juggling 3 containers that weighed more than most atmospheric shuttles. Commander, I replied slowly, we may need to reconsider our classification of humanity. Explain. They are not Category 7. What classification would you recommend? I watched Maya Torres catch all 3 containers simultaneously, stack them in a perfect pyramid, and then wave cheerfully at my optical sensors. I am not certain we have a category for what they are, Command. The silence from command base lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. Then, maintain observation. Do not engage further with evaluation subjects. Backup units are being dispatched. The transmission ended, leaving me alone with Maya Torres, and the growing certainty that humanity was about to become everyone else's problem. So, Maya Torres said, settling back onto her bench, want to hear about the time we convinced an entire star system that we could breathe vacuum? Because that story is going to make this container lifting thing look like a warm-up exercise. I had a terrible feeling that she was not exaggerating, and an even more terrible feeling that I was about to find out exactly how much trouble one species could cause when they decided that the laws of physics were more like guidelines than actual rules. The humans, it seemed, were just getting started. Maya Torres was not exaggerating. The story she told me over the next 23 minutes fundamentally altered my understanding of threat assessment, galactic politics, and the terrifying creative potential of beings who approach universal constants as polite suggestions rather than immutable law. So there we were, Maya continued, gesturing casually while perched on a container that should have crushed her into component atoms, floating around the Kepler-4 system in what the locals probably thought was a dead ship. No life support readings, no heat signatures, no electromagnetic activity, just a big hunk of metal drifting through space like cosmic debris. You were actually inside this vessel? I asked, already dreading the answer. Oh, absolutely. All 47 of us, breathing vacuum like it was mountain air. Her grin contained enough mischief to destabilize small governments. See, the Zeltharian Empire had this brilliant plan to blockade Earth by creating artificial breathing requirements. They figured, if they could convince everyone that humans needed oxygen-rich environments to survive, they could control our expansion by limiting where we could go. My processors stuttered. Humans do require oxygen to survive. This is basic biology. Well, yes and no. Maya Torres shrugged. We do need oxygen under normal circumstances. But the thing about humans is that we have this annoying habit of redefining what counts as normal circumstances when it suits our purposes. That is impossible. You cannot survive in vacuum. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Maya Torres laughed, a sound that my audio processors were beginning to recognize as harbinger of impending impossibility. Look, Krix, here is the thing about human biology that your scans probably missed. We are not just one species. We are a species that contains multitudes. Before I could request clarification, another priority transmission crackled through my communication array. Krix-9, this is Commander Vex Prime. Report your current status immediately. Still conducting evaluation of Subject Prime, Commander. Evaluation. Krix-9, our long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the human solar system. Something is generating artificial gravity wells that should not exist. I looked at Maya Torres, who was now whistling a tune that seemed to vibrate through dimensions. I was not equipped to perceive. Commander, could you be more specific about these anomalies? The humans appear to be reorganizing their local space-time geometry. For recreational purposes. Maya Torres stopped whistling. Oh, that would be the Henderson Project. Tommy Henderson bet his sister Cass that he could make Saturn's rings spell out his girlfriend's name for their anniversary. Took him about 6 months. But the gravitational mathematics was surprisingly elegant. My threat assessment systems began generating warnings in languages that had not been invented yet. Did you say an individual human reorganized an entire planetary ring system as a romantic gesture? I transmitted to both Maya Torres and Command Base simultaneously. Yeah. But he overdid it a little. Lisa broke up with him 2 weeks later because the gesture was too extra, even by human standards. Maya Torres examined her fingernails with studied casualness. Plus, the rings now spell out Lisa in letters that are visible from 12 light-years away, which has been causing some diplomatic incidents with neighboring systems who think we are claiming territory. Krix-9. Commander Vex Prime's transmission contained harmonics that indicated severe systemic stress. Are you telling me that humans are casually manipulating celestial mechanics for personal relationships? It appears so, Command. That level of gravitational engineering should require civilization-level resources and computational power that exceeds our most advanced theoretical frameworks. Maya Torres was now juggling again, but this time the objects she was tossing into the air were not contained. They appeared to be small, localized gravity wells that warped light around them as they spun through impossible trajectories. Oh, Tommy did not use civilization-level resources, she said, catching 3 miniature black holes and making them orbit around her hand like trained pets. He used his garage, some scrap metal, and a really good cup of coffee. Humans are excellent at improvisation. Krix-9. The transmission from Command Base was now accompanied by alarm klaxons. Evacuate. Immediately. We are detecting reality distortions spreading outward from your location. I looked around the warehouse. Everything appeared normal, except for the fact that Maya Torres was now casually violating several fundamental laws of physics, while maintaining what appeared to be perfectly ordinary conversation. Maya Torres, I said carefully, what exactly are you doing? Demonstrating. She released the gravity wells, which dissipated harmlessly into ambient space-time. See, the problem with your evaluation protocols is that you are testing us under normal conditions. But humans do not really do normal conditions. We do whatever conditions we need to get the job done. The job? Survival. Expansion. Making sure our species continues to exist and thrive despite a universe that seems specifically designed to kill us. Maya Torres stood up and walked to a control panel that I had not noticed before. Did you know that Earth is located in what galactic cartographers call the catastrophe zone? I did know this. It was one of the primary reasons humanity had been classified as low priority for evaluations. Species that evolved in the catastrophe zone typically did not survive long enough to develop interstellar capabilities. Your planet exists in a region of space characterized by frequent supernovas, gravitational anomalies, cosmic radiation bursts, and temporal instabilities. I confer. Right. Most species would consider that a deal breaker for evolutionary development. But humans looked at all those extinction-level threats and thought, hey, this looks like a fun challenge. Maya Torres began manipulating controls on the panel with casual expertise. So, we adapted. Adapted how? We became extinction-proof. The control panel she was operating began displaying readings that made no sense according to any known technological framework. Energy signatures that should not exist, computational processes that appeared to be running on quantum substrates, and mathematical models that seemed to be rewriting themselves in real time. Maya Torres, what is that device? Coffee machine, she replied without hesitation. That is not a coffee machine. Well, not primarily, but it does make excellent coffee. She pressed a series of controls, and the device began humming with harmonics that resonated through my mobile unit's superstructure. See, the thing about surviving in the catastrophe zone is that you need to be ready for anything. So humans developed technology that could adapt to solve whatever problem came up next. Universal problem-solving technology does not exist. It does now. Maya Torres turned around, holding a steaming cup of what did indeed appear to be coffee. Want some? Fair warning though, human coffee tends to have some interesting side effects on non-human nervous system. Before I could respond, the device behind her reconfigured itself into something that looked suspiciously like a communications array capable of interstellar transmission. Krix-9 to command base, I transmitted urgently. The humans possess adaptive technology that exceeds all known parameters. Define adaptive technology. Technology that appears to be capable of becoming whatever the user needs it to become at any given moment. A pause. Then, that is impossible. No species has developed universal fabrication capabilities. Maya Torres sipped her coffee and smiled at me over the rim of her cup. Krix, honey, you really need to stop using that word around humans. We take it as a personal challenge. The device behind her was now reconfiguring again, this time into what appeared to be a starship engine, capable of faster-than-light travel. How? I asked. Practice, Maya Torres replied. See, when you spend 10,000 years getting periodically wiped out by cosmic disasters, you either develop the ability to rebuild everything from scratch really quickly, or you go extinct. We chose option 1. But the resource requirements alone are irrelevant when you can convince matter to become whatever you need it to become. Maya Torres set down her coffee cup, which immediately transformed into a small robot that began cleaning the warehouse floor. Humans do not just adapt to their environment, Krix. We convince our environment to adapt to us. That is impossible? Maya Torres laughed. Yeah, we get that a lot. A new transmission crackled through my communication array, this one carrying priority codes I had never seen before. This is Galactic High Command to all evaluation units in the Sol system. Immediate evacuation protocols are now in effect. Repeat, all personnel are to evacuate immediately. What is the nature of the emergency? I transmit. The humans have begun demonstrating capabilities that exceed our threat assessment parameters. They are officially classified as a reality hazard. Maya Torres raised an eyebrow. Reality hazard. That is new. I like it. Maya Torres, I said, my voice modulator crackling with barely controlled panic. What have you done? We have not done anything yet. Her smile was now approaching weapons-grade levels of mischief. But since your people seem determined to evaluate our capabilities, we figured we might as well give you something interesting to evaluate. The warehouse around us began to shift. Not physically, but conceptually. The walls remained in the same position, but somehow the space between them expanded to accommodate what appeared to be an entire star system. I could see planets orbiting in the distance, their surfaces covered with cities that defied architectural possibility. Welcome, Maya Torres said, gesturing to the impossible vista that had somehow fitted itself into a space the size of a loading dock. To New Brooklyn. Population. Approximately 47 billion humans, 300,000 adopted alien refugees, and one very confused galactic evaluator. This is impossible. There you go again. Maya Torres walked to the edge of what had been a warehouse wall and was now a balcony, overlooking a thriving interstellar civilization. Krix, let me ask you something. In all your species evaluations, How many of them involved beings who treated the fundamental laws of physics as starting suggestions rather than final limitations? None. So, your evaluation protocols are based on studying species that accept reality as a fixed system with unchangeable rules. Maya Torres leaned against the balcony railing, which was apparently strong enough to support her weight despite being made of crystallized possibility. But humans do not accept reality as fixed. We treat it as a collaborative project. My processors were now generating error messages in mathematical concepts. I did not recognize. How many humans know about this place? I asked. All of them, Maya Torres replied casually. New Brooklyn is not exactly a secret. We built it last Tuesday when regular Brooklyn started getting too crowded. You built an interstellar civilization in one day. Well, we had help, turns out, when you start treating space-time as a construction material rather than an absolute framework. Urban development becomes much more efficient. Maya Torres pointed to a nearby structure that appeared to be simultaneously a skyscraper, a forest, and a mathematical equation. That is City Hall. Also the local library, the main power plant, and a really good pizza place. A transmission from Galactic High Command interrupted my increasingly frantic attempts to process this information. All units, this is Commander Supreme SCI-FI. We have received reports that the humans have established parallel civilizations in approximately 47,000 alternate dimensional frameworks. Is this accurate? Maya Torres held up her hand, displaying what appeared to be a small device containing entire universes. 47,012, actually. We finished 3 more while you were talking. Why? I asked, the question emerging from my voice modulator as barely more than electronic static. Because we could, Maya Torres replied with the casual honesty of someone explaining why they had chosen a particular breakfast cereal, and because it seemed like fun. And because 47 billion people need somewhere to live, and regular Earth was getting a little cramped. But the energy requirements, the computational complexity, the fundamental violations of physics as you understand it, sure, Maya Torres shrugged. But physics as we understand it is apparently much more flexible. Turns out the universe is actually really accommodating once you learn how to ask nicely. The reality distortions around us intensify. I could now see through dimensions that had no names, observe civilizations that existed in the spaces between thoughts, and witness technologies that operated on principles that had not been discovered yet. What do you want? I transmitted to Maya Torres, my voice modulator automatically adjusting to frequencies that could travel through conceptual space. Want? Maya Torres considered this question while idly rearranging the local gravitational constant to make her hair flow more dramatically. Honestly, we just want to be left alone to do our thing. Explore the universe, meet interesting people, build impossible civilizations, convince reality to be more cooperative. You know, normal human stuff. Your species represents an existential threat to the established order of galactic civilization. Yeah, probably. Maya Torres nodded agreeably. But look at it from our perspective. We spent 10,000 years getting randomly murdered by cosmic phenomena, and we are finally at a point where we can make the universe work with us instead of against us. We are not particularly interested in going back to the old way of doing things. A final transmission came through from Galactic High Command, this one carrying surrender codes. This is Commander Supreme SCI-FI to Senior Evaluator Krix-9. You are ordered to establish formal diplomatic contact with the human species and negotiate terms for their integration into galactic civilization as a Category 1 civilization with special accommodation status. What does special accommodation status mean? I asked. It means, Maya Torres said, her voice carrying harmonics of laughter across 17 dimensions simultaneously, that your people have officially acknowledged that humans are too weird to classify using normal methods, and you are going to have to make up new rules specifically for dealing with us. She was right. As I transmitted my final evaluation report back to Galactic High Command, I realized that humanity had achieved something no other species in the known universe had managed. They had convinced reality itself to negotiate, and somehow, despite everything I had witnessed, I suspected this was just the beginning of what they were capable of. The humans had not just broken our evaluation protocols. They had broken the concept of evaluation itself, and they had done it while drinking coffee and humming show tunes. But Maya Torres was not finished with her demonstration. "Oh, before you file that report," she said, her voice carrying the tone of someone who had just remembered an important appointment, "you should probably know about the other thing. My processors already operating at maximum capacity, trying to catalog the instabilities I had witnessed, somehow found room for additional dread." "What other thing?" "Well, see, the thing about humans is that we do not just adapt to circumstances. We also adapt circumstances to other humans." Maya Torres walked to what had been a simple warehouse wall and was now a viewport overlooking 17 different galaxies. "Remember how I mentioned that we have 47 billion people living in New Brooklyn? Yes. What I did not mention is that only about 12 billion of them are originally from Earth. I felt my mobile unit's stabilization systems struggle to maintain balance." "Please elaborate." "The other 35 billion are refugees, immigrants, and adoptees from species that were facing extinction events, planetary disasters, or really bad galactic politics." Maya Torres gestured toward the impossible cityscape beyond the viewport. "Turns out, when you develop the ability to convince reality to be more accommodating, you can solve a lot of other people's problems too." A priority transmission burst through my communication array, with enough force to temporarily overload my audio processors. "Krix, this is Emergency Command Protocol 77 Alpha. We are receiving distress calls from civilizations across 47 sectors, reporting that their extinction-level crises have been resolved by humans. Please confirm status of human expansion activity immediately." Maya Torres heard the transmission and laughed. "Oh, that. Yeah, we have been having a busy month." "You have been? What exactly have you been doing?" "Helping." Maya Torres said this, with the innocent tone of someone explaining why they had fed a stray cat. "See, once we figured out how to make reality more cooperative, we started getting reports about other species facing problems that seemed solvable. Dying stars, collapsing ecosystems, resource shortages, dimensional rifts, that sort of thing." "And you solved them?" "Well, we tried to." Marcus Kim fixed the Andromedine supernova crisis by convincing the star to burn more efficiently. Sarah Park resolved the Zephyrian water wars by teaching their oceans how to desalinate themselves. And Tommy Henderson, after his thing with Saturn's rings, moved on to more ambitious projects. "What kind of ambitious projects?" Maya Torres pointed to a structure in the distance that appeared to be a small moon orbiting inside a coffee cup. "He convinced the galactic core to stop being a black hole and start being a really excellent source of renewable energy instead. Turns out, when you approach cosmic phenomena as collaborative partners rather than immutable forces, they are surprisingly willing to negotiate." My threat assessment systems were now generating warnings in mathematical frameworks that existed in negative dimensions. "Maya Torres," I said, my voice modulator crackling with barely contained panic, "are you telling me that humans have been casually resolving extinction-level crises across multiple sectors of the galaxy?" "Casually might be overstating it. We have been putting in some serious effort." Maya Torres checked what appeared to be a wristwatch that was simultaneously displaying the time in 47 different dimensional frameworks. "But yeah, basically, the universe is a lot more manageable when you stop treating problems as unsolvable and start treating them as engineering challenges." Another transmission from Emergency Command Protocol, this one accompanied by harmonics that indicated systemic governmental collapse. "Krix-9. We are receiving formal surrender documents from the hegemony of Vex, the temporal sovereignty, and the collective of infinite circles. They are requesting immediate integration into human-administered space. What is your assessment of this situation?" I looked at Maya Torres, who was now casually reshaping local space-time to create a more comfortable seating arrangement. "Commander," I transmitted slowly, "I believe the humans have accidentally conquered the galaxy by being helpful." "Accident?" "Maya Torres," I said, addressing her directly, Did you intend to destabilize galactic civilization? Destabilize? Maya Torres looked genuinely surprised. Krix, honey, we stabilized it. Do you have any idea how many civilizations were about to collapse before we started helping out? The hegemony of Vex was 3 days away from total economic meltdown. The temporal sovereignty was stuck in a causality loop that was going to erase them from existence. And the collective of infinite circles was facing a mathematical paradox that would have divided them by 0. And you solved all of these problems? Well, Lisa Martinez solved the Vex economic crisis by teaching their currency to regulate itself. David Park untangled the temporal sovereignty's causality loop by convincing time to be more linear in their local area. And the collective's paradox was actually pretty easy once we realized that dividing by 0 is only impossible if you insist on treating 0 as a fixed concept. Maya Torres stood up and walked to another control panel, this one appearing to be made of crystallized mathematics and running on principles that violated causality in 17 different ways. The thing is, Krix, once you start helping people solve their problems, word gets around. And it turns out that most of the galaxy's problems are only unsolvable if you accept the current definitions of possible and impossible. She activated the control panel, and suddenly I could see the entire galaxy spread out before us like a 3-dimensional map. Thousands of civilizations, millions of worlds, billions of species, all connected by streams of light that pulsed with harmonics of communication, trade, and cooperation. This is what the galaxy looks like now, Maya Torres said, her voice carrying pride and wonder in equal measure. Every light you see represents a civilization that is no longer facing extinction. Every connection represents species that are working together instead of fighting each other. Every pulse represents problems being solved instead of problems being ignored. How many civilizations have you visited? All of them, Maya Torres replied casually. Well, all the ones that wanted help. There were a few that preferred to handle their own problems, and we respected that. But most folks were pretty happy to have someone show up and say, "Hey, what if we tried approaching this differently?" I stared at the galactic map, watching civilizations that had been locked in conflict for millennia now working together to build impossible projects that spanned multiple star systems. "Maya Torres," I said finally, "what do you want from the galaxy?" She considered this question while absent-mindedly rearranging the orbits of several nearby planets to create a more aesthetically pleasing configuration. "Honestly, we want the galaxy to be a place where everyone can thrive, where species do not have to worry about extinction events or resource shortages or cosmic disasters, where civilizations can focus on building cool stuff and exploring the universe instead of just trying to survive. And if other species resist this assistance, then they resist it." Maya Torres shrugged. "We are not trying to force anything on anyone. We are just making better options available. If someone wants to stick with the old way of doing things, that is their choice. But if they want to try something new, we are here to." A final transmission came through from what remained of Galactic High Command. "This is Acting Commander Xyle 12 to Senior Evaluator Krix-9. Please transmit final assessment of human species for permanent record." I looked at Maya Torres, who was now teaching a small group of alien refugees how to convince matter to become more cooperative. "Commander," I transmitted, "humanity cannot be classified using existing frameworks. They have transcended traditional concepts of species development, technological advancement, and cosmic integration. Provide recommendation for future interaction protocols." I watched Maya Torres help a young Zephyrian child turn a handful of dirt into a small garden that bloomed with flowers from 17 different worlds. "My recommendation is that all species attempting to interact with humanity should abandon preconceived notions of what is possible and prepare to have their fundamental understanding of reality expanded." Is humanity a threat to galactic stability? Maya Torres looked up from her gardening lesson and smiled at me. "Krix, want to see something really cool? Before I could respond, she gestured toward the galactic map, and suddenly every star system began pulsing in synchronized harmony. The entire galaxy had become a single, megaphant instrument playing a song of cooperation and possibility. Threat to stability, I transmitted to command. Commander, humanity has turned the galaxy into a symphony. The transmission ended, leaving me alone with the growing realization that I had just witnessed the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history. Humans had not conquered the galaxy through force or politics or economic manipulation. They had conquered it through the simple act of making it a better place to live. And they had done it while treating the fundamental laws of physics as rough guidelines and the concept of impossibility as a personal challenge. Maya Torres walked back over to me, wiping her hands on a cloth that appeared to be woven from solidified starlight. "So," she said, "want to stick around for the next phase?" "What is the next phase?" "Well, now that we have got the galaxy running smoothly, we were thinking about expanding into other universes. There are apparently some really interesting civilizations in the parallel dimensions that could use some help with their cosmic disasters." I felt my mobile unit's power systems fluctuate as my processors attempted to calculate the implications of humanity expanding beyond their current reality. "Maya Torres," I said, "do you ever consider the possibility that there might be some problems that should not be?" "Nope," she replied cheerfully. "That is kind of our thing. We see a problem, we solve it. We see something impossible, we make it possible. We see a universe that could be better, we make it better." She paused, then added with a grin that contained enough mischief to destabilize small dimensions. "Besides, it is not like we are going to run out of universes to improve. From what we can tell, there are infinite possibilities out there. And infinite possibilities means infinite opportunities to help." As I filed my final report and prepared to return to what remained of Galactic Command, I realized that Maya Torres was right about one thing. The universe was never going to be the same. But perhaps, I thought as I watched humans teach alien children how to turn dreams into reality, that was not necessarily a bad thing. After all, impossible was just another word for not yet accomplished. And humans, it seemed, were very good at accomplishing things.